So our guest today on 15 Minutes of Mental Toughness, you're definitely going to like this guest because she is a professional volleyball player. Grew up in a volleyball family, and as all volleyball families go, I mean, it's the pulse of what happened. She basically played at the University of Kentucky, and this is her third year professional volleyball. She's played in Germany, she's played in Sweden, and has played in Switzerland, and has a brand new team this year. Excited about this interview. This is Morgan Bergren. Morgan, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, since I know nothing about professional volleyball, except what we see on TV, can you start out though with mental toughness? I mean, what is mental toughness to you?
So I loved what you wrote in your book about no one gets there alone. Just about everyone's an athlete, and I like that because I think that mental toughness is not only important on the court or on the playing field, but also in just the everyday, ordinary life. And so for me, mental toughness has a few different definitions. And so the first one, when I started to think about mental toughness, like my mind automatically went to the word tough, and it went to the volleyball court. And I just started to think about, all of those times when, like, I just wanted to quit or I wanted to take a rep off, but I didn't. I kept pushing through because I remembered in the back of my mind those goals that I wanted to accomplish, and that's what kept me going. And now looking back, and now where I am as a professional volleyball player. And just looking at all the things that I have accomplished and that I have pushed through. But now it's just a different world being in the pro world, because it's a 9-month season. We have 2-a-days almost every day, and it's grueling and it's hard and it's tough. And so often when I come home for the summer, I want to take the whole summer off, and I want to just relax and spend time with family and do the fun things that I didn't get to do while I was overseas working. But then it clicks in, and I remember how badly I want to make it into the national team gym. And so for me, yes, I take a couple weeks off in the summer, but I have to just think about, again, back to those goals and what I want to accomplish, and that's really, I think, what gets me through those times when my body is aching and sore and I've been working out for weeks straight without a break, and I'm just ready to throw in the towel, and then it's like, no, I have to be willing to do what other people aren't to get to the place where I want to be.
And is that a conversation that you have, like, inside your head? Like, what do you say to yourself to keep going and push through that?
Yeah, it is the conversation. I actually just had it yesterday when I was working out. My legs were dead tired. I just was done. I wanted to quit. And then, I don't know, I just think that there's some aspect where you just can push more. And so, I had that conversation where, no, Morgan, you're not quitting. You're going to finish this minute round. You're going to get through this. You're going to live. And this 1 minute is 1 minute closer to your goal. And so for me, that's kind of the thought process. And that's how I have to attack it and remember.
How does it work with mental toughness when it comes to the team? Because especially with the sport of volleyball, I mean, you all have to be working together in unison. How do you think mental toughness comes to play when, in the actual sport team environment?
Yeah, I think that's huge, and I think that comes to just kind of, let's say, mental toughness is like a muscle, and exercising that, and in practice, doing the reps the right way, and not cheating yourself, and holding your teammates accountable. I think that starts in practice, and then once you're in the game setting, I mean, you could be up 5 points, 10 points, or you could be down 5 points or 10 points, and just not allowing that to overcome just the whole team dynamic. And just pushing through that and holding your teammates accountable.
Yeah. So I know you're getting ready to head back overseas. I mean, what is something about professional volleyball that we don't know about that you think is important?
I think it's important for people to know that it is a job, and it's a wonderful job, and it doesn't feel like work to me, but it is a job, and it's a full-time job. I mean, we get hired to go play and make a team better, and we're expected to give 100% of everything that we have, and usually that means twice a day. So we do, I know on this last team that I was on, we had a midday either practice or lift, and then we'd have a couple hour break, and then we'd be back in the gym in the evening. And so those days where we were in the gym, I mean, there wasn't much time for anything else except to wake up and eat, to go train, to eat again, maybe take a little rest, and then train again, and you're doing it all over the next day. We did have like 1, maybe 2 days off if we got lucky, and that's when we would like rejuvenate or kind of explore a little bit, because I mean, it is such a blessing to be able to play in another country, and just so much of the world that's unexplored by me, and I want to see as much of it as I can. Yeah. So as much as it is work, it is a very awesome opportunity as well.
So when you're getting ready to go, what's the new team that you're getting ready to join?
VC Wiesbaden. It's in Germany.
So brand new team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've been a part of a lot of teams like throughout your life. What's it like getting ready to go and join that new team? I mean, what's that whole feeling like?
It's pretty scary at the start, you know. For me, I just have to pray a lot, because there are so many unknowns that come with that. And I mean, I've never met any of these people that I'm about to play with for 9 months, to live with for 9 months, to work alongside. And so it's all of that, plus it's the cultural aspect. Like, I don't know what it's like to live in Germany. I don't know how many other Americans are going to be there. I don't know how much German I need to learn, if most people will be English speakers, or just all of that. And so the unknowns it's a lot, but it's also very exciting for me too, because I know that that's just more people that I get to come in contact with and get to know, and another culture that I get to kind of be immersed in and get to know more about as well. So It is exciting.
That is neat, because I guess then the common language then it always boils down to the sport of volleyball, and you know what you're doing there.
Yep.
You mentioned like prayer. When it comes to faith, and I know your faith is a big part of your life, how does that drive and how does that influence, you know, what you do in life, but then also your professional volleyball career?
Yeah, so faith is huge to me, and one thing, I guess it became a really big thing for me my senior year of college, and so that was something that I kind of missed the boat on through collegiate volleyball. And so when I started that faith journey after my collegiate career ended, I realized that I wanted professional volleyball to look a little bit differently, and that's kind of my other side of mental toughness. I think like the softer side is just to recognize that it's not always about the nitty-gritty on the volleyball court, that it's almost forcing myself to take a deep breath and just remember that my purpose here on earth is bigger than just myself, and it's bigger than volleyball. And so I try to take that with me everywhere I go. And one thing that helped me through that a lot was going on a trip to Thailand last year with the Athletes in Action volleyball team. And for me, that was just learning a lot about how do I give God the glory in something that I feel like is mine and that I have control over. And
how do you do that?
Well, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt. How do you do that?
that was a tough piece. And for me, it was just learning how to open up that space and allow God to come into that. And one of the sayings that we learned through that training was AO1, which means audience of one. And just to recognizing that volleyball is a gift, and it's a gift from God, and it's not something that I should look down upon or take for granted. Like, I would always get frustrated when, like, I would meet people that were so good at so many different things, and I'm like, dang it, I'm only good at volleyball. But now I can look at it and be like, wow, I'm really good at volleyball, and that's really a gift, and that's something to be proud of. But that's also something where I have to remember that volleyball is what I do. It's not who I am. And so that's been a big piece for me, is like, how, if volleyball was taken away from me today, like, would I survive? Would I be okay? And for me, the answer is yes, because I know it's not the end all be all. I know that my life beyond volleyball is so much greater than that, and has more of a purpose than just what I do on the volleyball court. But at the same time, like, that just gives me so much more drive to just leave it all out there and just give it all I have. And we talked a lot about, on that trip to Thailand, just about playing to worship, like playing to give thanks. Like, you're thankful for what you have and your abilities and what you can do with that. And so for me, that's a big piece of it too.
One of the pieces that we always talk about on this podcast is Hinge moments. So the one moment, one event that changed your life. Even though sometimes we don't know it when it happens until later on. Can you share your Hinge moment?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I know it kind of sounds silly, but there might kind of be three little pieces that go together in this Hinge moment. I think the very first one is kind of this epiphany or vision that I had my freshman summer at Kentucky. I didn't know anything about professional volleyball, but I knew that the United States had a national team that played in the Olympics, and they were playing that summer in the Olympics, and I was just doing my everyday thing, and all of a sudden I was like, that's what I want. That's what I want to do. That's my goal. That's my dream. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know what that looked like. All I knew was that after college I wanted to continue to play, and that had never been a thought in my mind before.
So you're a 14-year-old girl that never thought, not until you got to college and you saw that.
Yeah, so never before had even thought about going professional or playing post-college. Like, that was never a thought in my mind until that summer at UK.
Very cool.
Yeah, so then I guess, like, the next piece of that would be then when this faith journey started, and fully believing and trusting in God and seeing the ways that He was working volleyball into my life, and then recognizing again, like I said earlier, that volleyball was a gift, and that this is something that He had given me, and that He purposefully placed that dream and that vision on my heart, and that was something that I wanted to chase after. And speaking of chase, I think the third piece to this is a book that my dad gave me right before I left for Switzerland, and it's called Chase the Lion, written by Mark Batterson. And I was just kind of in a place where I was really uncertain with where this whole volleyball thing was going. I knew that I still had this dream and this goal in the back of my head, but I was playing professional volleyball, but I still didn't know if that was even in reach. For me, it was this thing that was like out in the stars. Like, I didn't even know how to get there. I didn't know what to do. And reading this book, I mean, it just like rocked my world. And I mean, there are so many good books out there, but I believe that sometimes there's just like one thing that you need at just the right time. And for me, it was this book, and its mantra on the front is, if your dream doesn't scare you, it's too small. And so that just like got me going, and I had the heart and the courage to actually send an email to the head coach of the national team, and nothing came about it as of now, but I believe that something will happen, and I think that those three things together is my Hinge moment.
Yeah, excellent. So if you can share, so what happened in college? Why did faith take hold then?
So I kind of grew up knowing who God was, grew up going to church, but didn't really have like the personal relationship with God, and didn't really understand what that was all about. And so I had between my sophomore and junior year, I had committed my life to Christ through baptism, but that still didn't really take hold. It didn't really take effect into my life. And then my senior year, my collegiate career ended earlier than I expected, than I wanted it to. We lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament. It was a real heartbreaker. A guy that I had dated all through college had just broken up with me over
before the game.
Break. I'm sorry?
Before the game?
Oh, no, this is after. So
okay.
This is like the series of events.
Sure.
Collegiate career ended, guy broke up with me, and over Christmas break, and I was going back to live in a 1-bedroom apartment at Kentucky, no volleyball. All of my friends had graduated. I felt so alone, so lost. And that's kind of when God took my hand and said, "You're not alone," and just opened my world to a whole new group of people, and fellow believers and Christians and people that were there to comfort me and speak truth into my life. And just from then on, I just dedicated to living my life for God, and that's kind of where.
When you mentioned God taking your hand, did you hear an audible voice? What happened?
Yeah, so it was like a day or two before I was getting ready to go back to Kentucky for my last semester there.
And stay in school, graduate.
Yep.
Okay.
So, and I never had really opened my Bible willingly before. I'd had some people talk to me. I had a really awesome girl at Kentucky actually give me a Bible, but never had willingly opened it. And the same girl that gave me a Bible also gave me a devotional for the book of Luke. And I guess I just had something overcome me. Looking back at it now, I believe it was the Holy Spirit. It's like, "Morgan, you need to open your Bible, open this devotional." And so I did. I was a bawling mess, did not want to go back to school. And I sat at my kitchen table, opened my Bible, opened this devotional, and it was all about the overwhelming peace that God provides. And that was all I needed. That was my Hinge moment for my faith. Wow. That was what I needed to get through, and to go back to Kentucky knowing that everything was going to be okay.
Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, I always think, I think everybody has their own story and their own journey, so that's why I kind of ask about that, because what was that whole experience like, And
Sure.
I think sometimes when believers feel being, pulled by the Holy Spirit or overcome by the Holy Spirit, that's an actual thing that actually happens. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things another reason why I wanted to do this interview was in this professional world that you're in, you come back home for a couple months, but you've adapted a minimalist lifestyle, which I always find fascinating. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I get to take 2 bags of 50 pounds over with me, and basically that's all I have when I go over there, and I don't buy a whole lot. And so for me, living the minimalist lifestyle with just based off of materialistic things, that's such a new thing for me, because growing up, I just like to keep everything. I like to go shopping, and I'm just accumulating so much stuff over the years. And I still live in my parents' home in the summers when I come back. And every time that I've come home, I'm just completely overwhelmed by the amount of crap that is in my room. And this summer, I finally had enough. I came home and I purged like my whole room, my whole closet, all my shoes, everything. I just got rid of a ton of stuff. And felt so much better about it. Still have way too much stuff, but I think for me it's just learning that you can live simply, and there's so many wants, and I think for me I pay more attention to my wants than my needs, and so that's one thing that I'm trying to really work on and haven't fully grasped yet, but is that like I don't need all of this stuff. I don't need all this clutter. What I do need is to maybe give financially to a ministry, or to give my time to someone who needs my help. And so that's a big thing that I'm really starting to dive into and trying to learn more about, and learn about myself more through that. And I think another piece of it too is the mental side of it too. How do you live minimally mentally? And I read a book, it's called Tuesdays with Maury, and they hit on he hits on in that book that it is okay to fully acknowledge and fully live in your emotions, but then once you do that, to detach from it. And I think too often, especially for me, I'm overthinking, or I let things stick around too long in my head, and I just get a lot of clutter up there. And instead of just allowing something to happen, recognizing it and letting go of it. And I think today in our society with anxiety and all of that, which I don't experience that personally a ton, but I think that that's something that's so big, is just trying to declutter your brain, taking a minute, whether it's to meditate or to just relax and shut it off, or to pray, or whatever your means may be. But I think that's something that's really been really huge in my life as a professional athlete, is I've got to be on top of my game. And this whole talk is about mental toughness. And I mean, you can train as hard as you want to physically, but if the mental aspect isn't there, then I think you're missing something. And so I think, like you said, like I mentioned earlier, I think we're all athletes, and totally agree with you on that one. And I think in every aspect of our life, like we just got to kind of hit the pause button and kind of detach.
Yeah. So when you take your 2 suitcases over, and so I mean, if you're out, with your teammates, you come across something that's nice, I mean, do you buy it, or do you have to exercise discipline and not buy it at all? I mean, how does that play out?
Yeah, a lot of discipline. And it's not too hard, because I know that I can only come home with 2 suitcases, and I know any more than that, it's a lot of extra money to try to get that stuff home. I have been fortunate enough, I had to buy quite a few things for my room in Switzerland, and I was fortunate enough to have a teammate that let me keep some of that in storage. So that has been nice as well. But I mean, there were a lot of times where I just had to window shop or
so it's not even kind of an option for you. I mean, that's removed.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I'd have to stick to my guns. Okay.
Because it was interesting you said that, like, sometimes we live according to our wants rather than needs. I remember Joyce Meyer said, pray for what you need, not for what you want. And that's a pretty bold prayer when we think about that, because God will provide our needs, but not always our wants.
Absolutely.
I'm always fascinated by that too. I mean, do you find yourself then, when you practice that discipline, a minimalist lifestyle, do you find yourself then, like, pulled in different directions to help out other people?
Yeah, that is something that I've really tried to work on a lot these past couple of years, is just to give, whether that's give of money, give of time. And so when I am disciplined and I can set money aside to give back to like the ministries of like the people that have helped me through Athletes in Action or Crew or my church back home, or a friend that I met in Ethiopia is in need of a computer. And so for me, that allows me to then not focus so much on myself, but to help focus on others. So I'm by no means perfect. Still struggle with that. It's still a battle.
Sure.
But it's something that I am trying to be more conscious of and try to practice a little bit more.
I always say once we focus on others, it gets us out of our own head.
Yeah, absolutely. Fully agree with that.
There was a good quote that I've always hung on to, but the stuff we own ends up owning us.
Yep.
So that's fascinating when you come home, just kind of purge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we all die at some point, and I feel like for me, one of the biggest things is just making memories and doing things instead of buying things, because once we're gone, none of this stuff that's here, that's around me, that's materialistic, none of that matters. What matters is how I lived my life and what I did for others, and just the memories that were made. So
yeah, the experience stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because I guess when I'm thinking about it, like, we do become attached to things, and you're kind of equating that also with the mental game. Like, we can become attached to certain events, where the discipline from the minimalist lifestyle is to not become really attached to anything. Is that about right?
Kind of. I wouldn't say not attached. Like when I reference the Tuesdays with Maury book, he does talk about like detaching from those emotions. But I just think just trying to find a space and a time where you can just like let go of that and just not let it find a home in your mind. And that's hard. I mean, that's hard for me. There are so many things where I overthink, or I miss, or I'm angry about, or I hold a grudge about, and being able to try to turn that around and just understand that, hey, either that's in the past, hey, there's nothing you can do to control that, hey, like, this person, what they did to you, that's not who they are, it's something that happened, just like try to let go. And so I think a big part of that is if something negative comes in, because that's a lot of times that's the thoughts that we hold on to is the negative ones. I think trying to find a positive in that is what helps me, at least, to kind of move on. It's like, okay, how did this person hurting me, how did that impact maybe my character, or how I handled the situation, or how I grew as a person, instead of, oh, this person is terrible and they did this terrible thing to me, and trying just to maybe look at it from a different point of view. Yeah.
How does that equate to, like, when you're playing and you make a mistake out there?
Yeah, I mean, that happens a lot, and I used to be one of those people. I mean, I'm a perfectionist, and so I'm one of those people that's just super hard on myself. I'm my own worst critic. And there is a man named Mike Lingenfelter, whom I believe you've had on here before, and who you're close friends with. And we train all the time together, and he is one of those people that pushes me to my limits volleyball-wise, but then is that same person that reminds me when I'm being too hard on myself and when I need to show myself some grace, and helps me to remember that you are not perfect, and to correct, not condemn. That's the biggest one for me is, okay, you just made a mistake. What can you do to fix it? And not get so down on yourself, but okay, this happened, now we can move forward from it. And so I think that's what I have to continue to tell myself in my own head. And then when it comes to other teammates making mistakes, I think just like helping them through that, coaching them through that, saying what you see, and if there's something that maybe they're not seeing or something that they could fix that you see that maybe they don't understand, helping them figure that out and working through that, I think, and not leaving someone out on an island because they made a couple mistakes in a row, but letting them know, hey, man, we all make mistakes. Like, you're going to be fine. Get the next one.
Why do you think it's easier to do that to a teammate than it is to ourselves?
Gosh.
Because I think a lot of times, like, we would say things that we'd never say to anybody else, but we tell ourselves that.
Oh, absolutely. That's the question of the century right there for me. I don't know. I know for me, I think because we have all this clutter and chatter going on in our heads, I think we just get so caught up on the negative stuff, and we don't let ourselves off the hook. I don't really know why that is. It might go back to the perfectionist thing, or I don't know. That's a great question.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, like in all these sports, we're playing still against ourselves, even though we have an opponent. Mm-hmm. And we know everything about ourselves, so the good and the bad and the ugly. Let me ask you a question. So, because obviously there are listeners here that aren't into volleyball, not going to be a professional volleyball player. When it comes to like real life, or even maybe if it is in the sport of volleyball that you've learned, what's one thing that you think we need to know or get better at when it comes to mental toughness?
One thing I think that I've had to learn a lot recently, and that you talked a lot about in your book, is that it's about helping others. And when we help others, then we become better as well because they're helping us in return. And so I think the biggest thing is just to know that no one gets there alone, and we are all in this race together. We are all fighting for what we want, what we believe in, but I think it's important to know that that there are people that can help you through that, and that there are always people that want to see you succeed, and I think it's important then to recognize that and to do that in return. And so I think if it's finding one person that you can reach out to help, or to just ask about how their day is going, get out of your own head and find someone else that you can impact, I think is really huge.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Where can people follow your career, and even learn more about you? So let's see. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and then our team has a Facebook page. It's VC, or it's VC Wiesbaden, and Wiesbaden is spelled Wiesbaden. And I think our games will be live streamed. I'm not 100% for sure on that, but if they are, I think either they'll post it or I will post about it. And then also it's kind of a goal of Munciana and then onto me that I start a blog that they're going to put on their website. I'm not really sure how that's going to look yet. It was just presented to me the other day, but I'm really excited about that. Mm-hmm. And kind of the potential that's there, and just getting to talk more about life overseas, life of an athlete, and just kind of the ways that different things have impacted me and stuff like that. So I think that'll be a really neat way to kind of get more information out there. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll put those links then on this page as well.
Awesome.
Morgan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.